What up, guys? So back in around Thanksgiving, I sent out an email to my Chew Crew email newsletter, my daily email that I send out, which if you guys want to join, somewhere around here. But I sent out an email basically sharing 7 things that I was thankful for. Many of them were very simple stuff like my wife and my son being born in America and the fact that I'm alive today, right? It's very simple things that we all take for granted, right? That said, there was one thing in it that seemed to strike a chord with a young man named Nathan. So in the message, I shared that when I was faced with some certain traumas as a youngster, I made certain decisions. I don't know why I made those decisions, but I'm glad that I did. Basically, when I was younger, I was sexually abused, molested, whatever the word is, by a teenage boy he was like the son of one of my mom's boyfriends. And then later on, when I was 12 years old, I was in 7th grade, I was jumped by some, I guess you could call them kids, like 16 and 18-year-olds, right? I had my nose broken. I got messed up pretty bad. Wasn't fun, for a 12-year-old to experience. And, despite all those things, those were some of the worst experiences that I had as a young kid, right? Especially the being jumped part. It was some of the worst experiences I've ever had as a young kid, but they led to some of the best things in my life. Weird how that works, right? Well, as I said, there was a young man named Nathan. And again, I don't talk about this stuff too much, but he asked a question because he's experienced it. So I figured we would dig into it. And obviously, maybe if someone else has experienced this and maybe this is helpful to you in some way. So Nathan sends me a message and he says that in your email, you mentioned sexual abuse as a young boy and getting jumped by older kids at some point. I went through similar experiences at different times in my life. And at the end of it, it basically completely destroyed my self-worth and esteem and brought a lot of negativity into my life. Building it back has been quite a challenge outside of accepting that my worth is given to me by Jesus. I am kind of at a loss on how to manage it and repair it. From how you carry yourself, it appears you have confidence and a good base of self-awareness and worth. So I was wondering if A, your self-worth and esteem were altered by these experiences, and B, if so, how did you build them back up? Thank you for your time. And we went back and forth, and obviously I shared some different ideas with him directly. But, the gist of it, Nathan, as I said, I'd do a video on this. Of course, those experiences had a negative effect on me. I would say that the sexual abuse one wasn't as bad. Maybe I was just because I was so young. It didn't bother me as much. And also too, the teenage boy, when my mother stopped dating the guy, he left, he was gone. So it was like, that's not around anymore, right? But the one where I got jumped, that was the one, man, that really it sent me down in a bad place because I was walking home from school. I was in a place how I had always been. I was on my block, right? I mean, it was a rougher neighborhood, but it wasn't terrible. And I remember I was right in front of my house. I was right there. Boom, got hit in the nose, blood everywhere. It terrified me to go outside. I still have to this day, I didn't even know this. There was a book that I was interviewed for about trauma and using jiu-jitsu to help that. I didn't realize that this psychologist is talking to me for an hour and a half to do this interview. And she starts telling me, oh, you have these symptoms of these things, right? So for instance, if I walk in a room, I'm scanning, not even a room. Anytime I'm out, I'm scanning constantly. I sit with my facing doors, right? I'm always on alert in outside areas because of this situation. It's not going to happen again. So my body's adjusting to it, amongst other things, right? So anyway, right? A lot of things happened. I was terrified to go outside. I went from being this young, excited kid who was riding his bike, going outside, playing all this stuff, who was in a pretty good shape, to becoming terrified of going outside, eating food, stress eating, just junk food eating, playing video games, getting fat, obese, and my friggin' confidence in the tubes, bro. Now, there were different things that helped bring me out of this. And I will share this again. This has been my experience. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know your situation completely. So obviously, I'm sharing this from a standpoint. If you were one of my guys in the gym when we were talking about this is the place that I share it from. Hopefully that it helps you in some way, right? At one point, one of the older guys in my life was my buddy's dad named Jesse. And Jesse took me down into the basement, me and his son. We would all go down in the basement and we would just lift weights together. Right around the time that I got jumped, after I got jumped, he took me downstairs to start lifting weights. Now, I didn't know this, but obviously looking back on it, he's looking at it from a standpoint of, let me help this young guy out so he can start lifting weights, right? My dad wasn't in the picture, so he's taking me downstairs. We're lifting weights, we're pumping iron. And I really fell in love with it because it was all of a sudden I started getting stronger and I could start feeling muscles. And obviously being strong as a young boy, that's a thing we want, right? As a young man, it's something we want. And by the time I got to high school, I'd been lifting for like a year and a half, and I was able to like move 2 plates. I could bench press 2 plates, 225, which is pretty big back then, at least. And I was pretty happy about that, right? And so lifting weights became this thing that I derived some sense of confidence because I got strong, right? By like a junior in high school, I could bench press like 315, could squat like around 400 pounds. It was like, I was pretty excited about those things. I was kind of strong. I could feel good about being strong, right? Then I got into wrestling, right? And wrestling was like the big game changer. Because it was one thing to lift weights and that sort of thing, but I was a big, strong kid, but I was still very timid, you know, because again, the physical altercation still scared me because the last time I had been really physical and I felt the physical altercation, it didn't go well for me. So then I start wrestling. And I remember that I didn't realize that wrestling was fighting. We were just doing this as a sport to pin people, to take them down, whatever. But I just loved the environment. I loved the camaraderie. The dudes were all together. There were male mentor figures in there, like my coach. And again, just a lot of really cool things. And then one day, I'm walking up the stairs. And Nathan, this guy, comes up to me and just like hits me right in the chest. Just pops me right in the chest. He said, open chest, just hits me in the chest. Now, this was a guy named Larry who used to pick on me. Now, for whatever reason on that day, it snapped. I dipped my head down, picked Larry up off of his feet, and just double-legged his ass into a friggin' radiator, like one of those old radiators where like the metal things are there. And I just was staring over top of him, like friggin' tears are coming down my eyes. I'm blood red. I'm just heaving, right? Because it's like you gotta think there's this pent-up emotion for years, and Larry was just on the brunt of it. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm sitting there like breathing over Larry. And then Larry was done. He was done fighting. Like double leg ended the drive to fight. He's like, hey man, chill. It was like all of a sudden, if there was like a video game, it was like new skills unlocked. It was like sound plays. I've leveled up. I realized that, and this double leg, this is fighting. And so like I used to avoid certain parts of the school because people would pick on me. I was like, no, not anymore. I would purposely walk through those areas, and I'd walk around like wait for them. And if like they said anything, boom, double leg. Because it was like all of a sudden I just found this skill out that nobody can stop because nobody knows how to wrestle. Boom, double leg. Back a lot of times when we'd be in the schoolyard fights, they'd call them, you scooped them up. So, scooped them. So I started doing that. And then that led to jiu-jitsu, that led to fighting, that led to everything else, right? So you were asking like, did it affect me? Yeah, it affected me. How did I build it back? Like, why do you think I am the way I am? Why do you think my ear's messed up? Why do you think I got scars on my face? My nose got broken. Why do I have calluses on my hands? I've got muscles on my shoulders because I was not going to be that little weak boy forever. I'm not that little weak boy that I was, right? And you aren't either. Because you train jiu-jitsu, you've built yourself up. These are things that happened a long time ago, bro. These are just things that happened to you. You're not that person anymore. You are a new person. And so they had a bunch of snow, and they're doing ice trucks there. Not an ambulance today. Maybe it's like some sort of like dump truck for snow. It's like I was in a mode with you guys too. So anyway, going back to you, right? I didn't want to be, I'm not going to be that weak boy forever. So that's how I escaped that. I think that a lot of times when bad things happen, and again, I speak from like no professional experience, but I think that when bad things like this stuff happens, people sort of go in different directions. Some people leads them to drugs and alcohol as their escape. Some people just block it out and it repress it as much as they can, and it randomly comes out in bad places, but they try to escape it that way, right? But we're all trying to escape this nasty stuff. I escaped with ease, right? I fought my way out of it. You know, again, I went into wrestling, jiu-jitsu. I went into MMA fights to prove to myself like I'm not that person. And I don't think that I knew that I was doing that when I was younger. I just knew that like there was this drive in me to like want to be stronger, to want to go do these things. And like to tell you about like the MMA fights, my first MMA fight, bro, I was terrified of it. Like I can't explain to you how like afraid I was to get into the ring. But I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I was scared for weeks leading up to it, but I was like, I have to do this. I have to prove to myself that I can do these things because I don't want to be that person. And so that's how I got out of it. And again, when you start doing all these things and you start doing challenging stuff, you start to develop this confidence in some area of your life, and then it spills out everywhere else, right? Then you become a confident person because you know that you are the kind of person that can do X, right? You know, again, I've done a few things in my life of accomplishment that I think are noteworthy. And so I walk into any situation relatively confident. confident enough to know that I can do this or that or whatever, or confident enough to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Can you show me? Like, I don't have an ego because I'm good over here, but maybe not over here, right? So again, I walk with a certain amount of confidence, present myself with a certain amount of confidence because I've done some stuff. And so to you, man, I don't know your situation. And obviously, if you need professional help, if you need like assistance with this stuff, get it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you were going to say like, how did I overcome it, which is the question you asked, it was a long, arduous process of decades. It wasn't like an instant thing, right? Because you don't just change that around, right? Of fighting through these experiences, going through challenging stuff to prove to myself that, like, again, I'm not this person, and to prove myself that I am worthy, that I am able to do things, that I have skill, that I have the ability to do something of value, that I insert whatever you wish, right? You get kind of the idea, I'm sure. So anyway, that's my idea to you, Nathan. I'm sorry those things happened to you. But again, you're still really young. So start taking on the mindset that I had. I would encourage you to do so, and start doing all the challenging stuff that makes you nervous, stuff that gets you on edge, whatever it might be, and prove to yourself along the way that, again, you can basically tackle whatever's in front of you, and that's where you get confidence from. You know, there's delusion where you think that you're confident about something that you shouldn't be, right? Because you've never done it before. Like a lot of people that come into jiu-jitsu for the first time, they have a certain level of delusion because they've never done it before, but they somehow think they're going to be a blue belt. I've seen those kind of guys before. I was one of those guys. Wrestled. But then there's confidence, and confidence comes from a deep sense of knowing that you have what it takes. Not like delusion where you're faking it before you make it. That's what that is. It's about putting yourself in the challenging situations and showing courage to those situations, and whether things go your way or not, on the other end, you come out stronger for it. So just some ideas to chew on, Nathan. Hopefully it helps you, brother, and I'll talk to you guys next time.